Welcome to Young Patriots.
In recent days, the world has once again found itself on the brink of an economic crisis that could become the largest since the pandemic. The trade war between the United States and China is returning with unprecedented force. Donald Trump stated that America will no longer sponsor Chinese expansion and signed an executive order introducing 100% tariffs on Chinese goods starting November 1st, from electronics to solar panels, from electric vehicles to medical equipment. Officially, this is a response to China's restrictions on rare earth mineral exports, but in essence, it is an open declaration of economic war. Trump said bluntly that if China wants to play hard, we are ready. These words instantly spread through global media, and Asian markets collapsed within hours. Beijing responded immediately. The very next day, China's Ministry of Commerce issued a statement saying that China is forced to take countermeasures to protect national interests and global supply stability. According to the South China Morning Post, the Chinese government is preparing a series of economic counterstrikes, including restrictions on the supply of lithium, neodymium, praseodymium, and other critical elements, without which the production of semiconductors, batteries, and electric vehicle motors is impossible. These rare minerals are the lifeblood of modern industry, and China controls 90% of their global processing. Experts at the Financial Times note that for the first time in a decade, Beijing is using resources not just as an economic tool, but as a geopolitical weapon. Without Chinese minerals, production at Tesla, TSMC, Apple, Intel, and Samsung will grind to a halt. The White House fully understands that any serious export restrictions from China could collapse the entire high-tech supply chain. But Trump, according to his closest advisors, has no intention of backing down. He is convinced that now is America's best chance to seize technological leadership from Beijing once and for all. Bloomberg Economics has published an analytical report stating that the United States is already preparing a package of financial incentives for companies that move production out of China to India, Vietnam, or Mexico. In other words, the White House is trying to reformat the global industrial map. In Congress, this is being called a new strategy of economic encirclement of China. But Beijing sees it as an attempt to undermine its internal stability. According to data published by Nikkei Asia, Chinese government-linked think tanks have already presented Xi Jinping with 3 response scenarios. The first is financial, the gradual sale of U.S. Treasury bonds, of which China holds more than $770 billion. The second is technological, restrictions on the export of components for American military companies and space programs. And the third is strategic, strengthening the military presence in the South China Sea and conducting demonstrative exercises near Taiwan and Guam. In Washington, such plans are seen as an economic blitzkrieg. A Rand Corporation report states directly that China is ready for the first time to use economic, military, and diplomatic tools simultaneously to change the balance of power. The Pentagon, in response, is intensifying intelligence operations and deploying additional ships to the Sea of Japan. Meanwhile, according to the Wall Street Journal, anxiety is growing inside the U.S. government over the country's dependence on Chinese minerals. The publication refers to a leak from the Department of Energy, which admits that U.S. reserves of rare earth metals would last no more than 7 months for the semiconductor industry. If China decides to cut off supplies, the American technological base could simply shut down. But China is acting cautiously. It does not want to openly provoke panic in the markets, as its own economy is heavily dependent on exports. However, the mood inside Beijing is hardening. According to anonymous Reuters sources, Xi Jinping held a closed meeting where he stated that if they try to strangle us with the economy, we must show that we can strangle them with technology. These words, insiders say, were met with approval among the military and party elites. The U.S. administration responded by announcing the launch of the National Program for Technological Independence, worth more than $400 billion. The program includes the construction of new chip manufacturing plants in Arizona and Ohio, the extraction of rare metals in Nevada, and the creation of a strategic lithium reserve. But as CNBC experts note, all these projects will take at least 3 to 5 years, while the war has already begun now. Der Spiegel reports that European leaders are in a panic. Germany's industry receives most of its components for electric vehicles from China, and now these supplies are under threat. If China cuts off the flow of lithium and magnesium, the European economy will enter a recession by spring, said a representative of the German Automobile Manufacturers Association. Meanwhile, a massive restructuring of industry is beginning in China. State media are broadcasting the slogan, "Made in China for China," emphasizing the course toward technological self-isolation. The domestic market is becoming the priority. According to China Daily, the government has allocated 1 trillion yuan to support national microelectronics companies and to launch new rare metal processing plants. But the US still has its own trump cards. Trump is considering a total ban on the export to China.
The heartbeat of
Thank you for
African
standing
resistance.
with us,
We bring you
for
raw,
standing with the
unfiltered
truth,
updates on
and for
Ibrahim
standing with
Traoré,
President
President
Ibrahim
of Burkina
Traoré.
Faso,
In these
the
trying
man
times,
challenging the
your
global
voice is
system.
powerful.
If you
Don't
believe in
just
truth,
watch, be part
power,
of the
and a
movement.
rising Africa,
Subscribe to stay
this is your home.
updated. Share to
Subscribe
awaken
now.
others.
Stand
And
tall.
head to the comment
Stay woke.
section. Tell
Young
us how you
patriots,
feel,
where
what you
revolution
believe,
lives.
and what Africa means to you. Together we are louder. Together we are stronger. This is Young Patriots TV, and you are the heartbeat of the mission. Thank you.